Hey everyone, it's Thursday, January 29th, 2026, and I'm doing a second Iran update today. The previous video that I did focused on what's going on internally, and we talked about the brazenness and the willingness to push back by the people of Iran that we saw in that in that press conference with that Iranian journalist. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch that. We also talked about how the underlying economic drivers behind all of the protests have not gone away. They've only gotten worse. And therefore, what looks like a quieting down and a stabilizing is anything but. And in this video, I want to focus more on the military side of things. So I mentioned at the end of that video, and Secretary of State Rubio mentioned in that video, that the Iranian regime, part of the reason that the people are bankrupt and have no water and no money and no energy is that they spend all of their resources on the military and on terrorism and on ballistic missiles and on the nuclear program. Well, here I want to take a look at how the regime is responding to the U.S. military buildup that we've been talking about, that everyone's been talking about for the last few days. So have a look at this. So here we have a story. This is in the Jerusalem Post, that it says here that another U.S. destroyer enters the Middle East waters as Iran receives 1,000 new drones. Iran ordered 1,000 new drones. The IRGC received a batch of 1,000 new drones while Iran prepares for a military confrontation. And this is while the USS Delbert Black, which is a destroyer, has also entered the region. And then further down here, it says that it quotes a source in Iran's foreign ministry that was speaking to the Arab media outlet Al Akhbar and said the following. He said, the American claims regarding Iran's request to negotiate and reach an agreement are baseless. He's saying that the Iranians actually don't want to negotiate and are aimed at waging psychological warfare and exerting pressure on Tehran, coinciding with the strengthening of the American military presence. The source went on to say that the United States was not seeking genuine negotiations, which might be true, because as I talked about in that previous video, the United States is making demands in the negotiations that the regime cannot agree to without ceasing to be the regime. The foreign ministry official added that the U.S. wants Iran to dismantle its nuclear program. It does. Limit its defense capabilities, and it does. And recognize Israel. What a joke that is. Could you imagine the Iranian regime recognizing Israel? This has nothing to do with a balanced agreement. It would mean Iran's surrender. Yes, indeed, it would. It would mean Iran's surrender. And then the source went on to say, if forced to choose between the agreement proposed by Trump and war, Iran will choose the latter. Look at this, considering it less costly because it will not surrender itself in advance. Now, why would it consider war less costly? You know why? Because this whole standoff is existential. As I said in that last video, you might say to yourself, just stop with all of the terrorism. Start spending the money you make from selling oil to the Russians and the Chinese. Spend that money on the economy, and everything will be fine. The people, and it wouldn't be everything will be fine, but the truth is the chances of protests would actually go down because the main driver of the protests was economic. So why do they consider war less costly? Because giving into the demands of the Americans, not having a ballistic missile program, not having a nuclear program means the end of the regime. But let's go further. This is an unbelievable piece of footage that I just saw. So the Middle East Media Research Institute, memory.org. They're an amazing organization that monitors Arab media, Middle Eastern media. They put up this video that this was aired on Channel 3 of Iranian TV. This is Iranian state TV. And it was a presentation showing off these high-end drones. So could you imagine this? Just a few days ago, this is January 23rd. It's from last week, from 6 days ago, on Iranian TV. They had a whole showcase of drones, of military drones, showing how powerful they are. Think about it, this is last week, as there's tens of thousands of people being murdered in the streets, and the regime is teetering, and they're having this big celebration of their mighty drone technology. And I just wanted, and their drones. I just want to show you the end of this clip, where at the end of the presentation, look at what the guy making the presentation says. This is mind-blowing. Check this out. is them celebrating the drones. And here's the guy who designed the drones, and they're treating him like a big hero. And they're having like this big celebration. The crowd is cheering. Of course, these are all people who are, part of the regime, loyal to the regime. Look at this.
جمع‌بندی داشته باشه. جمع‌بندی رو اینطوری شروع میکنم. میخوام بگم شالوم.
Look at that. He ends his remark. He wants to close his remarks with a threat to the Israelis. He ends his remarks by saying, "Shalom" in Hebrew. We are very close to you. Now, it's not only the Lincoln aircraft carrier that everyone's been talking about, which is the biggest aircraft carrier in the world that has been bringing these F-35s and all these American assets. There's 5,000 men on the Abraham Lincoln that's moved into the region. You've heard about that, but it goes further. This was reported today. A third U.S. aircraft carrier, the George H.W. Bush, has now joined the military operation against the regime in Iran. Another aircraft carrier, and the USS Delbert Black. The Delbert Black is a destroyer. It has also moved. It just entered the Middle East. This was also reported today. And 4 KC-46A Pegasus tankers just left the U.S. and are flying across the Atlantic Ocean. They're flying together with 6 EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft, which took off from Virginia. This is from today. Today, folks. Today, these tankers. Now, these tankers are refueling planes. They allow for a lot of air activity without needing to land. And that has to do with the fact that the Saudis and the Qataris aren't allowing the U.S. to use their bases there. So the United States is bringing over tankers and aircraft and destroyers and more aircraft carriers. And what's more, this is really breaking news from earlier today. Breaking, the USS Abraham Lincoln has reportedly gone dark. Its transponder switched off, which means it can't be detected anymore, with no inbound or outbound communications, suggesting preparations of war amid escalating tensions with Iran. And of course, as we said, Iran, when faced with the option of backing down and staying alive and feeding its people or going to war, the Iranian regime has chosen war. Folks, things are escalating, and they're escalating fast. Don't let all the calm and quiet let you think that, that the protests have gone away and everything's just fine. The regime is collapsing internally, and they're digging in. They are not willing to negotiate. They are rearming themselves. They just got a new shipment of 100 drones. They're threatening Israel, and the U.S. military assets are only building and building and building. Folks, this is coming to a head, and it's coming to a head fast. If you're finding these videos helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, share, all that. And of course, check out all the content at Israel 365 YouTube channel, where I put up a lot of very, very informative videos 3 times a week, and everything else we're doing over there at Israel 365. All right, folks, that's it for right now. Thanks for watching.